Mark, are you with us? Ah.
I am.
Okay. Very good. Boy, this technology is great when it works.
Yeah. It took me a few minutes to log on through the county's website and through my stuff, so I think we're all good to go, though.
All right, great. And your presentation's good to go?
Give me a few moments. It wasn't clear to me whether I should do it off of my laptop or whether Janine was going to do that, but if you would bear with me for just a few moments, I will pull that up. It's going to take me a couple more seconds. Okay. I believe I'm ready to go. Yep.
Okay, and I believe we have a quorum. Do I see Purnell? Did he call in, or do you know anything, Janine?
Hey, Nan.
Oh.
No, I don't see
Hi.
Purnell. I haven't heard from him either.
Okay. All right, but I think we do have a quorum.
Yes, you do. You start whenever you're ready.
All right, so let's get started. I bring to order the Cuyahoga County Council Operations, Intergovernmental Relations, and Public Transportation Committee. Tuesday, September 22nd at 3 o'clock. Clerk, please call the order.
Calling the roll, Ms. Baker.
Here.
Ms. Simon.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Schrein. Mr. Schrein is absent at the moment. There is a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Any public comments?
No, Madam Chair, no one has submitted any comments.
All right, if you had a chance to review the minutes from the July 28th meeting, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. There are no matters referred to committee, so we're going to go right into discussion and would like to welcome our Inspector General, Mark Griffin, and he will give us an overview of the Agency of Inspector General's semi-annual report, January 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020. So welcome, Inspector, and let's continue.
Thank you, Councilwoman Baker. I'm Mark Griffin, Inspector General. Thank you to council representatives for an opportunity to come and speak with you today. Greatly appreciated. What I'd like to do today is just talk a little bit about what we've done in the last 6 months, but also kind of do a little bit of a retrospective. So if you'll bear with me, I have a PowerPoint presentation that if I can share my screen, I hopefully will be able to pull that up. So let me see if this will work. And if not, okay. Hopefully, is my screen showing up?
Yes.
Yes? Great, fantastic. So let me, I may need remedial help for technology. I mean, one of the reasons that lawyers go to law school is to avoid numbers and counting. So if you will bear with me for one moment, I will try to get the screen set up, well, close enough. We'll just go through this as it is. So, hang on one second. Okay, great. So again, this will be a review of the first half semi-annual report, but we're in a little bit of obviously a strange moment in our history and in our country's history because of the COVID situation and because we have all had to change how we do things. And it also provided a little bit of time, at least for me and my staff, to also reflect upon, what our office is and what we should be doing, and then talk about what we've been doing specifically in the last 6 months. So if you'll bear with me for 2 slides, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the background. And inspectors general have been around for a long time. The first was actually Baron von Steuben in the Revolutionary War, appointed by General Washington, and his job was to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse and in the Continental Army. And since that time, the Inspector General idea has started to take root and grow. And so most importantly, there was the Federal Inspector General Act of 1978, which at the federal level created an Inspector General in every major department in the federal government, because they wanted an independent voice. They wanted the ability to look at how government operations work from an independent standpoint. And so those inspector generals were mixtures of audit functions, ethics functions, and simply given the ability to investigate and to report. And that seemed to be so successful that it was expanded. And so it went from 12 federal agencies to 74 statutory agencies in the federal government. And then that started to grow among the states as well. So there are currently 135 inspectors general in 34 states. We have an Ohio inspector general, but every one of those is different. They all have different responsibilities. They have different duties. They have different powers. Some of them are law enforcement entities. Many are not. Some function more as auditors, others exclusively as ethics bureaus and bodies. So when it came to Cuyahoga County, hopefully my slides will work. This office was created in 2011, and thanks to the very hard work of Councilman Greenspan, Councilman Baker, Councilman Miller. Councilman Baker, of course, was not there at the time. Councilman Simon. This office was created, and it was created from the beginning to do a combination of different things. Investigations, very important to look at waste, fraud, and abuse, misfeasance, malfeasance, and nonfeasance in county government, to serve as the chief ethics officer, and also to have a variety of compliance functions. And those are still effective today. And the first Inspector General, Naila Bird, did a great job of setting a foundation for this office. And at the time, the focus of the office was significantly on employment-related investigations. And so there were a lot of complaints being heard, and a significant part of the activities of the office focused on harassment and bullying or arguments of discrimination or improper hiring on the HR level. And in taking on this job, I sat down and had discussions with newly elected Executive Budish, Councilman Miller, Councilman Greenspan as well. And certainly their view of what the office should be doing was a little bit different than focusing on employment-related investigations, because the concern there was that by having my office or the Office of the Inspector General focus on those issues, we would undermine the line supervisors and we would undermine the Department of Human Resources. And the feeling was that the Agency of Inspector General should continue to have a role in ethics and continue to have a role on HR-related issues if they were of a certain type, but not to be a way for people to do an end around human resources or around their line supervisors, and to really spend more time looking at things that would protect taxpayer dollars or investigations that would help us systematically. And so one of the things that we did in 2015 was to change that focus a little bit, and not to eliminate all HR investigations, but to change things around, and also to try to work wherever possible in a cooperative manner. And so one of the great pleasures and things that I am grateful for has been the operational support from both council and from County Executive Budish in a number of ways. And so I just want to say thank you for changes in this office's statutory support for requiring responses from the executive branch for our recommendations, for providing subpoena power when necessary, and for including us in the charter. And I think those have made a difference tremendously. And so as this time is for reflection, I want to say thank you and also to recognize that Executive Budish has been extremely helpful with getting responses, and between his policy and the policies passed by this council, there's set a level of expectations. And so these things don't need to be enforced the way they were. When I first started this job in 2015, I would come to council on a fairly frequent basis or to the executive and complain about not getting access to information. And so I think in the last 5 years, that has changed tremendously. And so I think the tone of my recent reports have been much more about cooperation because those expectations have been set. They've been set by this council, they've been set by Executive Budish, and the result is we no longer have to use some of the tools that have been provided because people know what they're supposed to do. But the other things that we've done were to move away from paper and analog filing and to try to do everything to the extent possible web-based and digitally based as well, because we know that contractors don't want to come down to the office to spend 2 hours of their day on an ethics education seminar when that can be done online. We know that that our county staff are very busy with their families. And so we want them to be able to do it on a web-based basis as opposed to filling out paper or analog forms. And that also gives us the ability to search those records more quickly and to be more responsive. And then the other piece of the change has been with respect to investigations. So most HR-related investigations are now referred to the HR department. That's their job. They're good at it. We do it occasionally if it has to do with systemic or operational matters, or if there's an issue where they would like us to handle it instead. And we've also tried to look at ways to monetize the value of this office to county taxpayers. Our neighbors work hard. They want to make sure that the dollars that they pay go to useful tasks. So my last slide before jumping to the semi-annual is to kind of look at how that has made changes over the last 5 years. And so in those years, we've had over 14 million in saved or challenged costs. We've worked very hard with the county prosecutor and the county treasurer to assist in corporations that are delinquent in their taxes, to assist with those efforts. And we've also taken a hard look at some of our contracts and bills where we believe the county has been overcharged. Among other things, we looked at the loan portfolio of the Department of Development. We had over $65 million of loans that were not being tracked. That has then led to fundamental changes in the Department of Development, where they have done a tremendous job of going back and looking at the loans, recalculating them, and saving a substantial amount of money for county taxpayers. We looked at overbilling issues. We investigated process servers who were claiming to work 8 hours when in fact they were usually only working 4. That has, in cooperation with the Sheriff's Department, has streamlined that department. Cash handling in the Treasury, we've had thefts, unfortunately, misuse of federal grants with respect to funding for the Advanced Fingerprint Information System. That was a significant investigation. But then more recently, we've also looked at allegations regarding the former warden and former regional jail director, which they are no longer here. We'll leave it at that. And we've worked really hard to cooperate with the county prosecutor and the treasurer, as well as law enforcement. And then finally, I would say that we've tried to make our reports both good and bad, and simply to say what we found to be the truth. So in circumstances where the county has done well, we've tried to just simply say what the truth is. So in one of our reviews of road and bridge projects, we found that Public Works brought 72% of them under budget. And so that was a chance to say, not only do we point out what's bad or what could be improved, but we also try to highlight what's correct. So the last point that I would make is that our county is now on the U.S. State Department's list of areas where they bring visitors to come see how we have responded to government efficiency and ethics in government. So that's just kind of a retrospective over the last 5 years. And let me jump now and try to go through the semi-annual of what's happened in the last 6 months.
All right, thank you for that. Good background.
So we closed 31 investigations. And one of the things that we did as part of COVID was we had to change how we operated. So we adopted and implemented a plan for interruption of operations. And so we were actually ready when this came up. Usually we close low 20s in investigations, 22, 23, 24. We actually set a record because staff were in some ways more efficient working from home. 2.2 million in new tax payments. Usually we do about 800,000. So that was a significant increase. Significant secondary employment responses, 67 nepotism conflict of interest submissions. And again, we continue to do sort of the compliance area where we had 171 contractors registered and issued 23 ethics opinions and advisories. My computer lags a little bit, so bear with me. With respect to taxes, in that period of time, 2.2 million is significant. One of the things that we also do as part of our vendor registration process is to review whether the corporations or the vendors that are doing business with the county actually owe us money, because Executive Budish felt strongly that we should not be entering into contracts and paying out taxpayer dollars if they owe us money. And so just as part of our regular process, we found another 35,000 in unpaid taxes. So we accelerated that. And then oftentimes, or more recently during these updates, I'll tell you what's been collected since June 30. So the first 6 months, we did about 2.2 million. Between July 1st and today, another 984,000 has been collected through the assistance program with the county prosecutor and the county treasurer's office. So that seems to be a significant increase so far, because we're only a few months into this 6-month period. And frequently people leave their taxes towards the end of the year. So that seems to be going well. As we go to the next slide, we continue to review our contractors, and we currently have 10 that are on the list. In this last 6-month period, 2 have rolled off already, and then 1 more will end by the end of this year. And so we expect that by the end of this year, unless there are more added to the list, we'll be down to 9 debarred contractors. And I try to change slides, and there seems to be about a 60-second log, so bear with me. Another issue is the driver's license review, which we conducted in July of this year. And at least on my screen, it's a little difficult to see those numbers. I don't know if you can see them or not, depending on how you have your view set up. So let me try to tell you what those are. We do a semi-annual review of county employees who drive in the course of their business because we try to make sure that everyone has a valid license in order to avoid the difficulties or liabilities for the county. So in our July review, we found 10 staff employees who did not have licenses. 4 of those were suspended licenses, 5 were for simply a period of suspension, and 1 was a failure to reinstate. And so of those 10, we asked management to go back and review. And again, I've seen a tremendous difference in response rates from executive branch since we have put that into the ordinance. So all 10 have responded. And of those, they reviewed the driving records of 7 of the 10 and determined that they did not drive for the county or seek reimbursement while their license was not valid. And so of those 3 who are remaining, 1 was no longer a county employee and 2 have been disciplined by Human Resources. And my understanding is both of those suffered a period of suspension from their jobs. So briefly, that is what we have done. And I'm happy to talk about specific investigations that have been closed, but I also kind of want to talk about where we see this current period and what is happening as a result of COVID on our office's operations. We have transitioned primarily to remote operations. Each of us comes into the office, as needed. And so people are here to check mail, to access paper files and that sort of thing. Large parts of what we do have been unaffected, and we've been able to transition to remote operations. So, for example, contractor and lobbyist registrations, the background checks, secondary employment reviews, these are all things that we do remotely now through assistance from the IT department and others. Similarly, nepotism reviews, ethics opinions, driver's license reviews, cooperation with the Fishbowl Project, the wrapping up of the Department of Development review, although we've been meeting with development staff, much of that is unaffected. And so, that's one of the reasons that we saw, those numbers continue to be strong. We got significantly fewer complaints. And so one of the things we were able to do during the first half was to close up and complete a large number of investigations that had been low priority or where the interviews had been done, and we could close those quickly. But as we move into this COVID period, our complaints are down significantly since June, and so we're likely to see a reduction in investigations. I think it's probably unlikely that we'll be in the 30s again, when we close out this period. So in order to continue to be efficient, we're going to transition to a greater number of reviews and continue to complete older cases while the other members of staff who can work remotely do so. So that is my overview of kind of where we've been, how we've tried to lead this office, how I've tried to lead the office, and our prospects for going forward. And so, I know that there are some questions which I'm delighted to respond to either now or later.
Okay, members of the committee, I'll open it up for questions, and then I have a few myself. Anyone have a question for our inspector? And welcome, Purnell. I see you there. Good to see you.
Madam Chair.
All right, I'll start with a couple of the questions, and they are, for the most part, based on the actual report that you gave us. I've had a chance to review it, and there were some recommendations that were made along the way, and I guess I'm just curious if when you say you made a recommendation, for example, under harassment, bullying, and retaliation, did your recommendations get applied, or did it fall on deaf ears? In that particular case, how did that play out?
So thank you, Chairwoman Baker. I appreciate the chance to talk about this. This is one of the examples, I think, of how our office can play an important and constructive role. So the issue in that case was that an advocate and a private investigator for legal counsel serving criminal defendants in our Justice Center had been expelled by the prior warden. And the representative involved had been working in the jail for, probably close to a dozen years. And she was very aggressive in her service to her clients. And the former warden believed that that was inappropriate and cut off her visitation privileges. Certainly she was very, very aggressive. But one of the things that he said was that, well, you aren't following our rules of conduct. And so that came to us, we took a look at it, and we found out that there weren't clear rules of conduct. And so in working with the Sheriff's Department and Bob Corey and his staff, that person was reinstated, but was reinstated with rules. And that investigation led to the development of a code of conduct so that protects everybody, because, you know, it's a jail. We have to have clear rules so that people act accordingly and don't interfere with the process of the jail. And at the same time, criminal defendants and detainees have rights to counsel. They have rights to be protected. And so at the end of the day, the individual was reinstated and rules were developed. And so, you know, I think this is a good example of how complaints that come to our office can lead to good outcomes, and we can work cooperatively to fix the problem and move forward. And frankly, I would also say it's yet another example of executive branch folks responding and taking the rules from council and the guidance from the county executive to heart. So I think we are pleased with the outcome. I will also tell you that nothing is perfect, so I wouldn't be shocked if this comes back to us in a year or 2 years, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
That is, it's really good to hear that your recommendation was listened and followed. You were cooperative in the give and take of what they felt needed to be done along with your recommendation, and there's a good outcome. So that's a good story. Thank you. You know, the next one I had was on the community development grant review, and I'm glad that Purnell is here with us. And can you tell us a little bit more about, because that really is a county council recommendation. Where are we on that, and what would you suggest we do to rectify that review?
Well, I think the good news is it's already been done. So that had to do with an issue of a $500,000 grant to the East Side Market to support the development of an important economic development, community development project in that neighborhood. The processing of that was before we had new rules in the fiscal department. And so one of the things that happened was that I think some staff tried to manage and deliver the checks as opposed to letting the executive branch deal with these things. And so my advice, and I think it has occurred, is to make sure the fiscal branch, the fiscal office, requires certification on all of the criteria before issuing checks, but also to run that through the Department of Development, which has some expertise. I'd like to stress a couple things. One is no money was ever lost. I don't think anybody was trying to do anything wrong here. In fact, I think what they were trying to do was to accelerate, you know, the production of a good community project. Having said that, you know, I think that the operational part of it and the checks and balances are better placed through development. And the other piece that I would say is that 5 years ago and 3 years ago, I was not confident in the Department of Development's ability to manage loans effectively. And since that time, or grants as well, their staff has really been upgraded, and Brian and Sona in particular and Ted Carter have, it's a sea change. And I think in reference to the ability of the Department of Development to manage things, Councilman Miller 2 years ago asked me, well, do you think staff at DOD can do this? Why do we need an outside third party? And I told him, yeah, I think we need an outside person because I don't think they can do it. And I have changed my mind on that. And so not only can they do it, they've done a good job. So so that answer from 3 years ago has changed because they have done a great job.
Good. That's good to hear. I didn't know the outcome, so I'm glad to hear that that it all worked out. The 6 files that you mentioned in the Department of Development, are those 6 files something that we should be concerned about that have not been fully reconciled? Is that
yes and no. Thank you, Chairwoman Baker. Yes and no. They are 6 loans that are related to brownfields redevelopment, in which, and these are loans that go back 15 years or so to the prior administration or the prior system of government. Okay. And unfortunately, a significant number of the documents have been lost. And so I know that DOD is in the process of trying to find them as best they can, and they'll have to make a decision. I think that we need to watch it and to, ask them. They may finally come to the conclusion that we've looked everywhere, we just can't find them. Here's the best we can do. So I do think that on those 6 loans, we need to continue to push DOD. And we were just speaking with them this morning, actually. And, what they've said is, hey, we've had so many other fires to put out, we haven't had a chance to look at these relatively old loans, and we will get to it. And again, I would not have said this 3 years ago, but I have confidence that they will in fact do that.
Right, and I can go and keep it on your radar for perhaps a little farther down the road and check in and see if they've been able to resolve it. Thank you for the driver's license review. Sounds like you have cooperation from our directors to make sure that they are very careful about who has a license and who doesn't when they're behind the wheel, whether it's their own car or a company car, that they are in fact legal to drive. So it looks like you have got a good sense of cooperation when it comes to checking those licenses. So thank you for that. One of the last things I wanted to ask, and I know Councilman Miller and I have always been asking these questions on just about every board of control. Sometimes it seems almost every request. That's a little exaggerated, but it's a lot. And that is the late contracts that we are asked to approve. Sometimes they can be 3 months, 6 months, almost a year old. Or sometimes they're asked after the contract has ended. Many times it's retroactive reimbursements because services needed to be given, yet it's out of contract. And that isn't good business. And we have asked in the past that you take a look at that. Also, our internal auditor, Director Houston, we asked if she had any ideas that perhaps working with you on that, if she had any suggestions, and she said that she talked to you about it and that both of you together in cooperation could perhaps in time take a look. So what are your thoughts as of today of looking at these late contracts, given I understand the environment and the pandemic and the ERP system and all the challenges that have come our way since we first talked about it?
Yeah, it has been a source of some frustration. And I'm glad that Director Houston is on board, and I think that we will work with her staff to try to curtail this. Some of the late contracts are going to be late because they're based on either federal or state grants, and I understand that, but too many of them are not. And so, my hope is that working with the audit department, we will start issuing reports or reviews to try to correct this problem, because it's not good management to spend the money first and get approval later. It seems like since I have been here, we've been waiting for ERP to solve the problem, and it still is not solved. And I understand that those are reasons, but sometimes they're also excuses. And so, we need to do a better job. So I am committed to working with the Director of Internal Audit to try to reduce this number of late contracts.
All right, good. And believe me, we appreciate that, and we will, I'm sure, Councilman Mill and I will continue to ask those questions and at least get answers back. I think it raises the awareness that we don't like it. And even though it can't be helped in many instances, especially if it's state or federal grants, but there still are many instances where it could, and it gets log jammed in the system somewhere, and we need to figure out how to fix that. So just put it back on your radar. Lastly, I wanted to talk about your goals. You two, and specifically the no bid contracts and the work from home policies and procedures, given this new environment. And on the latter, we don't know how long we're going to be working remotely. We may be working remotely as a hybrid for all we know. And I would think that the security, the confidential material, much of the work that's done that needs to be protected. How are you thinking about setting ground rules and policies and procedures for that type of business to keep the constituents safe, the employees safe from any kind of security breaches, or because it's in a home that's not in an office that's locked every night? How do you protect those files?
So first of all, we have an IT cybersecurity person, John Cornwell, who is attached to our office. We share him part-time with internal audit as well. And he does a lot of things for us, but one of the things that he is most interested in, I think personally and professionally, is cybersecurity. And so he has worked very hard to make sure that we're educated about phishing attacks, about how to maintain confidentiality, and how to make sure that our files are protected. And so, he does things that I don't even understand, but so I feel pretty good about where we are with respect to that. But I think that we also need to think more broadly about the county and what we need to be doing in terms of educating people about cybersecurity and protection of individual files and individual information. So I guess what I would say to you there is we're going to continue to work with John, and so far so good. But it's never, you have to be perfect all the time, basically. So it never ends.
Right. I mean, I've seen others work from their home for other businesses in the private sector, and you have children in the background, or you have people coming and going out of your home, and you could have secure files on your desk. There's just interruptions that aren't there at the workplace that you would have perhaps in your home. And that's why I just was curious of if there were any policies or procedures that you were going to put in place to make sure that those type of things are protected and no one hears something that they shouldn't be hearing or seeing that they wouldn't have if they were in the office. Any thoughts to that, or any concerns about that?
I think you raise a good point. Everyone in my office signs a confidentiality agreement, and we had HIPAA training last year as well. But I think you raise a good point about documents that we need to look at. And so I guess I will ask John Cornwell for some advice on what we should be doing. The other piece is that, we have government, we have county laptops that hopefully are secured and protected as well. And I know that we all have virus software, but I think that you raise a good point, and we need to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, across the board, no matter who is working for what company remote. Your bid, no bid contracts, what were your thoughts on that?
So under the county charter, if there's an emergency no bid contract, they don't have to go through our registration process because it's an emergency, but they need to register within 30 days after they are awarded the contract. And so we found in our review that there were 6 that had not registered, and after we reached out to them, 4 have complied. One is a loan that is not closed yet, so that isn't done yet. And the last person who has not complied is actually Zoom. So we are working with IT to have Zoom comply.
Wow. It's a new world. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Look forward to hearing more about that. It's one of your expanded goals. Anyone else have any questions before we wrap up here today?
Yes.
Go ahead, Councilman Miller.
First of all, I'd have to say that Zoom has us where they want us. I don't think that we're gonna, if we can get them to voluntarily do it, well, then good. But so the other thing is that I will continue to partner with Ms. Baker about the late contracts and I know that there's some especially involving the federal grants where we don't even get the money until the contract is supposedly started, so there's some where there's legitimate reasons, but there's definitely some where we can do better. And the final thing that I'd like to say is just to make everybody aware that the Inspector General is continuing to work with us on an update of the whistleblower legislation. And we've gone through a number of iterations, and after doing a number of amendments, I looked at the draft and I felt that the language is kind of convoluted and not real easy to follow. And plus there's still some unresolved issues. So we're still working on it, but definitely plan to bring an updated version back to the committee. So I just want to ask for everybody's patience, and we're trying to come up with something that's good, and it'll be a clear step forward. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Councilman Miller. Any other questions from the committee?
Madam Chair?
All right, what's that? Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Jones.
Yes, Mark,
Okay.
you mentioned earlier. Thank you, Nan. Mark, you mentioned a little earlier about the companies who have been debarred. Can you tell us what the reason for the debarment or for those companies?
Yeah. Generally, they are either for failure to pay back their Department of Development loans or outstanding tax payments as well. The corruption-related debarments from the prior system of government have largely rolled off. So they are mostly related to non-payment.
Okay. Have you had any experience or any occasion to have to debar anyone for being front companies? Has that been an issue?
We haven't. Thank you, Councilman Jones. We currently have an open debarment matter on that issue. And our process, we've sent them a notice of potential debarment for being a front company. And because of our COVID situation, our process is to have them come in and talk to them and give us essentially a reason not to debar them. Essentially, it'd be a show cause meeting. And we have not done that due to COVID. But I think we are likely to make a decision on that during this time period.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate
Madam Chair, if I could just ask a moment just to say thank you to everyone on this committee. And also thank you to my staff who have worked incredibly hard during very difficult periods of time. So thank you to all of you on this Zoom call. And my staff literally set records during this period of time, and so I want to recognize and thank them. And hopefully we'll have another successful 6-month period. And thank you to council as well.
Absolutely. These are challenging times for all of us, and your report was very detailed, and we appreciate the hard work of your team. So thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to the next report. And I know any questions we have in the interim, you're always there to answer them. Thank you, Inspector. We do have next on the agenda, miscellaneous business. Is there any miscellaneous business? I did want to bring something up at this time, that when we had our last meeting with our internal auditor, Houston, we asked her to consider taking a look at our ERP and perhaps auditing their progress to let us know how she thought we were doing, another set of eyes. If you've had a chance to read her email, I would encourage you to do that. She gave us back 3 different points, and one of them was on the ERP. And if I can just read here briefly, she said that as stated during the meeting, the DIA recognized this as a high risk and included such work as part of our 2020 audit plan. But however, they do not, the resource constraint relative to the completion of the work is more than they can do. And their current resources do not have the technical knowledge to perform this work and consistent with the professional standards. So she is saying that the cost of this resource will exceed their current budget. And if we want this done, then we need to consider adding the resources that she needs to be that additional set of eyes at the ERP from this day forward to completion. And as all of you know, we've postponed the ERP till 2021. I believe all of it should be completed, relatively speaking, the end of 2021. So I want this committee to give that some thought. I'll express this also to Councilman Schron and who else do we have? Someone else missing? And let them know that at the last meeting that she gave us as an overview of the audit plan, this was important to us and this was her response. And we want to make sure that we understand it. If additional resources need to be given, we should consider that and put a proposal together. So with that, if anyone doesn't have anything further for miscellaneous business, hearing none, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all. I appreciate it.